Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Matthew Rose, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Jeanette McNeely. We warmly welcome the family of Corporal Robert Patterson, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge General Tom Middendorp, Chief of Defence, Kingdom of the Netherlands, and Mrs. Lillian Middendorp, accompanied by Air Chief Marshal Mark Binskin, Chief of the Australian Defence Force, and Mrs. Gitta Binskin. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors and students on behalf of Cathedral School of St Anne and St James, Primary Department of Mundingborough, Queensland. Please now stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Robert Patterson. Robert Patterson was born in 1894 and was the eldest of 9 children of John and Jane Patterson of Buckranbunyal in northern Victoria. After attending school at a nearby Woozang, he worked on the family property as a crop farmer and grazier. In February 1916, just a few months after his 21st birthday, Patterson enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at Bendigo. After 4 months training at Epsom Racecourse in Bendigo and Campbellfield Military Camp in Melbourne, he embarked for the training camps in England as an original member of the newly raised 38th Battalion. By then, his superiors had recognised his command and leadership skills and promoted him to corporal in the battalion's machine gun section. Once in England, Patterson spent 5 months on the Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire training and rehearsing for trench warfare before sailing for France in November 1916. The 38th Battalion entered the line in the relatively quiet sector near the town of Armentières, where it spent the bitterly cold winter acclimatising to conditions on the Western Front. While the nursery sector was considered quiet compared to other sectors of the front, the 37th Battalion was involved in a program of aggressive patrolling and trench raiding to prevent the German army recovering from the hammering it had taken on the Somme. In February 1917, 800 men from the 37th and 38th Battalions formed a composite raiding battalion and started training for a major trench raid on the Germans opposite the Australian position known as Point Ballot. Patterson formed part of the raiding party that hit the German trenches on the night of the 27th of February. His raiding team successfully entered the enemy position, took prisoners and inflicted casualties. Having achieved his objectives and returned to the Australian trenches, Patterson volunteered to assist stretcher-bearing parties retrieve the wounded from the enemy positions. German artillery fell on the party as they rested in no man's land, and on the return journey, a shell killed Patterson instantly when it exploded nearby. His body was taken to Armentières and buried at the Sitbongin military cemetery. He was 22 years old. Writing to Patterson's parents, his platoon commander described him as one of my most solid men, who was loved by the men of his section. He was a fine soldier and a good comrade who gave his life. Patterson's grieving family inserted the following epitaph in the local newspaper. "We mourn for you, dear Rob, though not with outward show, for those who mourn sincerely, mourn silently and low." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Robert Patterson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony for this evening. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.